Hello, it's good to be with you today on this early day in December, December 1st, and I am so glad that we are talking about such an important topic. My name is Kara Powell, and I'm the Executive Director of the Fuller Youth Institute and a faculty member at Fuller Seminary, and I'm a parent myself. My kids are 15, 13, and 9. And what we're talking about today, how to navigate digital technology as a family. I'll tell you, it is such an ongoing tension and pressure. It raises so many questions for myself and my husband Dave. Just this morning, we were lying in bed talking about something going on with our son and texting. So let me just tell you, this is a daily reality for our family, and hopefully you're going to get the practical tips that you need. The reason that we wanted to do this now is probably many of us as parents, grandparents, or youth leaders trying to help parents and grandparents, we're thinking about the holidays and we're thinking about maybe digital technology that we might be purchasing for our kids. In fact, I remember my 9-year-old, the very first time that she went online and registered for something was when my parents bought her something that she needed to then enter into the computer. So sometimes even these gifts for our kids are outside of our control. And so we want to help you be thoughtful and proactive. And we're going to share authentically about some of the things we think go well in our families, as well as some of the struggles we have as we navigate all these new questions. So I'm especially glad that we have these 3 dear friends of FYI and of mine. And we're actually sitting here in my living room in my house. Now we have a fireplace going, but true confession, this is Southern California. So it's about 70 degrees outside. But you know, we thought it was more of a holiday vibe to have the fireplace going. So anyway, and we thought about an hour together. Hopefully that will give you just enough time to get the help that you need that will make a difference in your ministry and in your family. So, so folks, what I'd love to have you do is, let's start with you, Lisette, and if you could introduce yourself and share a little bit about your family situation and what you do when you're not sitting in my living room talking about technology.
So, and I love sitting in your living room to talk about technology. This is great. So my name is Lisette. My husband and I have 2 kids that are currently 12 and 14, about to turn 13 and 15, so a middle schooler and a high schooler.
Nice.
I worked in student ministry for 17 years, I guess, and this is my first fall, not formally in student ministry, but I still have a small group of girls that I walk with. I coach an awful lot of volleyball and just spent a ton of time with kids, and so I'm excited to talk about this. We actually also just added an 18-year-old to our house, and that has added a very different dynamic to technology for us.
I'm sure.
We are on a big learning curve right now.
Absolutely. And you are Canadian.
Very Canadian.
So this is an international webinar. So yay! It's a bi-country webinar. So we're very excited about that. So great. Okay, thanks, Lisette. And especially with 2 teenagers in the home, I'm sure this is a daily question for you too. So
all the time.
So La Rosa, your kids are a little bit younger. Tell us about your family situation and what you're doing in life these days.
Well, I have 3 children. My oldest is 9. My middle child is 7, and my youngest will be 4 in about 3 weeks.
Yeah, nice.
And currently, I am a stay-at-home mom. I pretty much run around behind them all day, or I volunteer at my church as the coordinator for our moms group and PTA and whatever else involves my kids and my husband, who's one of the pastors at our church.
Yeah, and it's an exciting church plant that your family's involved in. Your husband, Albert Tate, you 2 planted this church in Monrovia, not too far from here in Pasadena. You planted it, what, maybe 4 years ago?
Almost 4 years.
4 years ago, and now it's grown to how many people at this point?
A little over 2,000.
A little over 2,000.
Yeah,
so it's incredibly exciting what God is doing. And one of my
stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And you're a great worship leader too. And one of my fun connections with La Rosa is that your oldest and my youngest were in preschool together. So they used to do play dates and hang out together. And so it's just fun to track with your family and navigate some of these questions about technology and parenting in general. Oh, you bet. We know we're going to learn a lot from you. So now this is the oldest parent in our midst. He doesn't look like it at all. But Steve, tell us a little about yourself, family, ministry situation.
I have the oldest children.
You know, you're also the oldest. You're also the oldest.
Yeah. I am the father of 3 amazing daughters. My oldest, Kara, is 21, and my middle daughter is 19, and then we have a 15-year-old as well. So my wife Jen and I are having a great time being their parents and trying to figure out a lot of things, including technology. I'm also a faculty member here at Fuller Theological Seminary, assistant professor of youth, family, and culture, and I get to work with the FYI team as the applied research strategist, which has been a great joy for us as well.
Absolutely. We are so pleased that you're on our team, Steve.
So glad
I mean, we pray that God would bring just the right person to teach in our School of Theology here at Fuller, as well as help us at FYI do what you just said, apply research, including the kind of research that we're talking about today with technology. And so you're such an important voice to our team. And you moved here all the way from Michigan?
All the way from Michigan.
All the way from Michigan. Right. So how's the move going?
It's going pretty well.
Yeah.
We are getting settled here in Southern California, learning a whole new way of working the holidays.
Yeah,
and I was just telling you the other day that I have a whole new interest in bowl games now because they're all played out here.
Yes.
So I'm pulling for the Big Ten and all the teams coming out.
Yes, absolutely. And navigating Southern California traffic.
A little bit.
A little bit.
A little bit. Yeah.
A little bit more.
That's right. That's right.
Well, friends, I mentioned earlier that Dave and I were constantly wrestling with questions about technology. And, I don't consider myself someone who's, let's just say, drifting through life as a parent. Dave and I, we created this technology covenant for our kids, and we have it posted in our kitchen. And so, we have these guidelines, but there's just constant new questions for us with our kids. Just last week, our 15-year-old Nathan was sitting on our couch watching sports, and he had his headphones on, one ear on, actually on the ear, and one kind of, a little bit skewed, so that he could listen to the game on TV and while also listening to his phone. And I was like, what is this? We're not going to get into this. I mean, I'm all for a little bit of multitasking, but that's a little bit ridiculous to be wearing headphones, one ear while watching the game. So, that's the most recent question that Dave and I have been dealing with is how to handle that. But what are some of the questions that you're wrestling with when it comes to technology that you'd love answers to as a parent? We'll go ahead and start with Steve.
Yeah, I think that what we're discovering with our girls all the time is that there's this blur between sort of family time and friend time. I think it used to be a lot more defined. Where they would go and be with their friends or they would be with us. And I think what technology does in many ways is it sort of blurs that. So a perfect example would be just last week I picked up my youngest daughter, and as soon as she got in the car, she pulled out her phone and was catching up with her friends from back home since we just moved here, and the ones in school. And I kind of felt like it was an infringement on our time, that sacred car time where I catch up with her. And so I'm always doing that dance of going, well, can I butt in? Can you put that down?
Do you say that sometimes?
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, but it's just this weird dance that we're doing, and I don't think there's any sort of clear cues associated with that all the time. But I don't blame her. I know she's just sort of catching up, but it's sort of that moment where the friendship, family relationship time is sort of blurred. It's tricky.
It's funny that you say, put that down, please. Part of why we're doing this webinar today is we've actually written a new book. Myself and Art Bamford from our team and Brad Griffin, we all co-authored this book called Right Click, geared for parents. And as we were talking with parents about this, they said, you know what, a really good title would be, put that thing down, please. Because parents have been saying to each other quite a bit. So, but you sometimes say that to your daughter. Now, what's interesting is you say that, friend time starts infringing on family time. Do you feel like the opposite happens, that family, then, the tentacles of family reach into friend time, or is it more of a one-way street?
Well, that would be probably a better question for her, but I do find much more of a freedom to text her throughout the day, ask her what she's doing. Even, in some of the past sort of youth ministry events that we've been involved in, sometimes it's the kids that want to take their phones to an event, but a lot of times it's the parents that want their kids to take their phones to the event because they want that constant contact and that constant connection. And I feel that all the time as well. I kind of want to know what they're up to and be able to reach them at any time. So, I think in some ways maybe I am infringing. But it's all for the good reasons, of course.
We'll just call it more of an integrated life.
That's right.
So Lisa, your kids are just a little behind Steve's in age. So what kinds of questions are you and Kyle?
Well, I think that comment was just really good because I think I wonder about that. My mom didn't know what went on during the day. When I got home, we would sit down and have a visit about that over a snack. But That's very different than my daughter being able to text me through the day or me being able to do the same. And I think as a youth worker, I've watched, I love all you parents, sometimes be a little too involved.
Yeah.
And I just think technology allows us to be way too involved
Yeah.
if, you know, on our end, not just on their end. So I think that was just a great thought to ponder for me.
Good.
I think we definitely wonder about the double screening. That's what we call it in our house. I'm like, why do we don't need two screens? You know, we're sitting down to watch a show and they're both on their phones as well. And sometimes my son also has a video game on the side and we're triple screening. And I'm like, do we need all of these items? I don't know that you can focus on any one of them.
Yeah.
But then I think on the blurred lines factor is our daughter started high school, so homecoming just happened for us. And we were navigating the world of first dates, that kind of zone.
Yeah.
And now everything was also done with technology in the midst. So we had friends, you know, Instagram private messaging about like, who are you going with and who can ask and and then we're texting and we're this. So it was a little beyond note passing.
Yeah.
You know, it's just changed the access for that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, dating is already hard enough to navigate.
Yeah.
Now we've thrown in this whole mix of, you know, the photos that are popping up and who got asked better than other people.
The Instagram-worthy homecoming ask, that's a lot of pressure on high school students.
It is a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And I was like, can you not just go with friends? And it's like, you don't understand. I was like, clearly I don't.
Yeah.
But, you know, it has changed the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just added this social pressure that I think was already terrible. You know, and it's just added this layer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you know, in this book, we cover plenty of research related to technology. So I'm going to say something that I have no data to support, but I'm just going to state an observation that I made. I try to distinguish when I'm quoting research and quoting my opinion. But, you know, as a parent of a 15-year-old, I think he has far more interactions with girls because of what texting allows. I mean, when you think back to when we were teenagers, we had to call the home of somebody of the opposite gender, somebody we were interested in, and you know, you're just hoping their parents don't answer, and you'd think about, what am I going to say? You know, you'd have like 2 or 3 things scripted out. I mean, I was doing this in my 20s, thinking through like, what am I going to say? When I remember doing this with my now husband, like, what am I going to say if he answers the phone? And you know, teenagers now, they can just text, and the bar is a lot lower to have those kinds of interactions. So again, I have no data on this, but I think it probably facilitates a whole lot more, shall we say, pre-dating or dating or flirting interaction than what we dealt with.
Yeah.
So anyway. So LaRosa, your kids are a little bit younger, not sure that do they have their own phones? I would assume not. Okay, so your 9-year-old doesn't have her own phone.
No.
Okay, great.
So for us, it's a question of not if, but when.
Yeah.
And because both of my children have classmates that have phones.
Yeah.
Sure.
They're 7-year-olds and 9-year-olds.
Yeah.
You know, I'm volunteering in class and I'm like, these kids are taking out phones,
Yeah.
taking pictures.
Smartphones even.
Yes.
Yes.
Samsung's big, you know, my kids are coming home saying, why can't I have a phone?
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just funny because I was just listening to you say that, you know, keeping in touch with your kids, because a lot of these kids I know that have phones, it's because their parents, you know, work and they don't pick them up after school and they're going to different programs and they want to keep in touch with them. And I told my kids, I'm picking you up. There's no need for you to have a phone. And if you want to play a game, you can use mine occasionally. You know, so I know that it's a question of when. You know, so it's great to hear. Or my question would be when? When did you decide that, you know, what age did you decide that it was okay for your children to have a phone?
Such a great question. And I think what's so crazy about technology is that it's changing so rapidly. Even with my 3 daughters, the way they use technology is actually different between them. And so the when is a great question, but I feel like you're going to have to navigate a whole different set of competencies than we've had to navigate simply because of what is available for our kids. So I think it's a huge question. To answer your question, I think we waited later with our oldest, but our youngest, I mean, there's always sort of the younger child sort of thing. I mean, it actually was different
Yeah.
for our children, based on their personalities and also just on the way the world works, right?
Yeah.
So,
and I would say for us, for Dave and myself, it's also our kids' level of responsibility. We try to do things pretty fairly in our home. Krista got her ears pierced at age 10. That's about when Jessica will get her ears pierced. But we told our kids that technology is one of those areas where it might not be, quote, fair or even, because things are changing in our culture, and you have to prove that you're responsible. And that doesn't just mean not losing your phone or having it go through the washing machine, which has happened in our family with one of our children who shall remain nameless. But it also means that you're showing prudence in the boundaries that you're setting as a child, and the way that you're living up to our boundaries. I will say for us, Nathan, our 15-year-old, he was one of the last students in his class to get a phone. And we got it when there was a period where I think it was in 7th grade, where there was 3 times in 2 weeks where my life would have been easier if he had a phone. And I thought, okay, we're going to get this boy a phone now. Because he didn't know when the track meet was going to end. And, so there were those sorts of uncertainties that happened. And we felt like, again, he was responsible enough at that point to handle a phone. And then he wanted a smartphone, but we waited a couple years for that. So we're kind of late adopters as a family when it comes to technology, and I just don't think we'll regret it. So anyway, the other thing that technology brings up is all sorts of tensions. And we talked about questions already, and LaRosa, your question about when can we get a phone is a great one. But there's also tensions that technology brings up for us. I will say one of mine is my own use of technology, if I can be honest and vulnerable here for a second. And, I'm very aware of how much my kids are seeing me on my phone or seeing me on my laptop, and especially because I work from home a lot, which I love. That's a part of my job. I love picking my kids up from school and being around when they do homework, and I get to do that a couple afternoons a week, which is such a blessing. But then they're seeing mom on the laptop, or this morning at 6:30 in the morning, I'm working on the laptop and they see mom on the laptop. So I think one of the tensions it's raised for me is just what kind of boundaries do I have as a parent? And again, the data that we include in this book, Right Click, it shows that certainly kids are digital natives, but we as parents, we're digital immigrants. Like our use of technology is only barely behind teenagers' use of technology. So I think that's the eye-opening question that I'm left with really almost every day is, am I using too much technology around my kids? But what about you? Can you relate to that tension or other tensions that emerge that technology brings into your family?
Absolutely. I mean, I think specifically more so when I was working full-time in student ministry, because people wanted access to me all the time, and I felt this need to give them access all the time. But it has changed our ability to have boundaries. I mean, there was a time when you knew you didn't really call a home phone after 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Right? You didn't really do that. But now it's like, I'll just shoot you a text. If they don't see
10,
until the morning,
10:30,
whatever,
not a
it
big
doesn't
deal.
matter.
Yeah.
And so I just think our boundaries have gotten a lot worse just on politeness, because there isn't the same etiquette, I think, with texting as there is with phoning. So that has changed the game, and I would certainly say, I mean, I'm still on my computer quite a bit doing all kinds of things, and it used to be about screen time was the conversation when our kids were little. You could have 30 minutes of screen time a day or whatever the case may be. Well, there's so many screens. And what does that even mean? Because if they're doing homework on a computer or writing a paper on a computer, whatever the case may be, that's so different than playing a game on a computer. And how do you know when, again, blurred lines. There's just a lot of blur, everything is kind of woven together. So
Well, I joked with a lot of parents that I wish my laptop had a light. In fact, somebody could invent this. This would be great for us as parents. A light that went on whenever I was working on something that was related to my kids. Because I do a lot on my computer related to my kids. Girl Scout registration, church stuff, etc. And sometimes this is my guilt, right? If my kids are around when I'm on my laptop, I'm like, so I'm registering you for Girl Scout camp now. I narrate out loud because I want them to know this isn't all work mommy's doing for Fuller, but this is also part of what I do, to kind of help our family flourish. So so somebody invent that light, please, that switches on when we're doing stuff for our family. So how about LaRosa, Steve, other tensions you relate to, or this tension of how much we as parents use technology too?
No, I think I can relate to the tension you mentioned earlier. I think about a lot about, since my kids don't have phones now, what kind of example am I setting for them when I do give them a phone?
Yeah.
Because I realize now that I have my phone in my hand constantly. I may not be doing anything on it, but I'm probably checking it and seeing if I have a text message
or in your pocket,
or in your pocket. It's always on me.
Yes.
And even I was thinking like this. Our society is just one of these where you don't have to wait for anything. Like before, if someone needed to get in touch with me, I remember not getting the phone until I was a sophomore in college.
Yeah.
So if you need to get in touch with me, you would leave a message somewhere, and then I would get back to you when I got back to where there was a phone.
Yeah.
And now it's like, your phone rings while you're driving. I'm like, I need to answer this, and it's like I really don't have to answer this now. Like they can wait until I stop and I'm at the store and I'm calling back. But I guess with society, everything is like a right now thing. And I think about that with my kids. We're in the car and I pick them up from school. I'm on the phone with a friend, and my kids are like, "Mom, so today, da 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 da." And I'm like, "Hold on a second. Yeah, what? That's so great."
Yeah.
So I'm trying to be more conscious of like, just putting it down. And setting that example for them, because one day they're going to be driving, and I don't want them holding conversations and texting, and paying attention to their phones at the red light, kind of thing when they're driving. I'm thinking they're going to not be in the car with me always. So,
It's such a good point, LaRosa. I think for those of us who are parents or maybe grandparents or work in churches or ministries with parents or grandparents who have younger kids, that whole example that we're setting. And I remember talking to a friend of mine who had a 2-year-old, and my friend would read on her tablet, which was the same tablet that the 2-year-old used to play games. And so quite a bit of the time she would be actually reading, but every time her son saw her reading on the tablet, he was like, "Mommy, games, mommy, games." And so, in his mind, mom's playing games all the time, mom's not reading. So, there's that blurriness that we've all talked about, that, our kids don't realize what we're doing that is reading or whatever it might be, and they just assume we're playing games or doing that sort of stuff. So fascinating insight for those with younger kids. So how about you, Steve?
Same thing. I mean, I think the modeling is such a huge thing. I mean, I think it's so natural to want to check up on email and then all the other social media that we tend to be involved with. And I think that it's just sort of instinctive to do that. I hate a lot of emails in my inbox, and so there's something incredibly, it's like a drug. It's so addictive. Delete. And but I'm sort of like, why is that? And I think for me, a warning track is if I'm not reading like a book or something off the computer, I mean, I think that's sort of something inside of me that I'm just kind of going, I need to somehow set this thing down. And I think it's just as a deliberate act. And maybe it's giving up some efficiency for the quality of life in some ways, because I don't really want it to rot my soul in some sort of way. So, and that's just me personally. I'm not saying everybody else's souls are rotting. I'm just saying that for me, that's just, I think we all have sort of internal tics of when we know it's distracting. For me, that's definitely one of them.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. So, in the midst of these tensions that we all navigate, I know that you all are thoughtful parents, and those watching this webinar, you're thoughtful parents, grandparents, and leaders also. And you've probably tried to set some boundaries for your family, times or areas or spaces, whatever it might be, when technology is allowed, as well as maybe some restrictions. So, so share some of those boundaries with us, either that you have now or that you instituted at particular ages. To help us understand how to navigate this together.
Anyone? Right? So challenging.
I highly recommend camping in places where no one can access internet.
Yep.
I mean, it sounds really silly,
No.
but there is something about sort of having to sort of give up on it, any hope of finding it, that I think for us, we have found this way that we sort of rely on each other and interact with each other in a different sort of ways.
Is that hard for you to be without technology for multiple days?
I think at first it always is, but I think, the more you're sort of around and doing other things, you kind of get caught up in the moment. I've used this phrase before. I actually preached on it once, but I really think there's something powerful about the campfire, and I think campfires sort of beat text messages every time. I mean, my kids love having like a bonfire, and when they sit around with their friends, I mean, I see them interacting in a different sort of way, and so there's something about maybe getting away that has some sort of value to that, which isn't always possible, but it is something it's there. Another thing, and then I'll let you guys share. Sometimes if I'm asking one of my daughters something and they are on their phone, I'll just sit and wait. And I'll just wait there, and then they'll realize that a question's been asked to them. And so in some ways, it's sort of our cue, our little cue, like, okay, we're having like a person-to-person conversation here. And, you know, and they're free to do that to me as well. So that goes both ways.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So especially when you're away, to try to find places where there is no wireless, or maybe ask that devices get left in hotel rooms if they're, or something like that. So okay, good, excellent. What a great practical way, especially as we head into the vacation, holidays, Christmas holidays. Some of us will be traveling, and we can apply that. Other thoughts about boundaries that you've set up?
I think we have lots of them. I'm not sure I can think of all of them specifically, but we were late adopters as well. I think we just felt like there's so much access, and we need to help them navigate when they can actually appropriately handle the amount of access is available through technology.
Yeah.
So specifically phones. So we started with dumb phones, although that was actually challenging. Are we allowed to call them that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Not a smartphone.
Non-smartphone.
Yeah,
challenge.
Right. We started with that with our daughter, because on their 12th birthday is when we did phones.
Yeah.
But by the time we got to our son, even 2 years later, it was really hard to find one.
Yes.
Which was amazing in 2 years.
Yes.
And so we're also those parents that actually our kids have to pay for their own phones.
Yeah.
So we have a pay-as-you-go plan that they navigated and chose, which really limits their access to data, which is really what we feel the most strongly about being just where they can get into more trouble than we would like.
Yeah.
We have an app on our phones that my husband can tell you what it's called. I can't. But anytime they want an app, we actually have to approve it.
Great. So
they can't access anything alone that way. And it just helps us ask questions and help them think about why they want all the things they want on their phones.
Yeah.
We are screen time limiters in our household, and that really comes more down to, I guess, TV time and video games and games on their phone. But as 1 hour during the week and 2 hours on weekends, we are not.
1 hour during the week and 2 hours on weekends.
Yes.
That's about what our family is too.
And we're not super fierce about that.
Yeah.
Our son tends to push that limit much more than our daughter does.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have a family show we watch, and that doesn't count. But we have certainly been that way. We don't allow phones after, our kids go to bed at 8:30 and 9, and after that they're out. They know that.
Do you collect the phones when they go to bed?
We don't, because they have never defied us on that yet. And so they plug them in, it's on a dock, and it's away from them, and that's all we wanted. And they've been super respectful of that.
Yeah.
Google was always something that made me nervous, simply because I know you spell one thing wrong and you end up in a world you don't want them to end up in.
Sure.
And our kids have still been super compliant about just asking, hey, Mama, can I go check this on Google? Yes. Tell me what you find. We do check phones. We do regular phone checks, just because I think it's important. And sometimes it's about social navigation and just seeing how are they navigating their friends or difficult conversations, and making sure they have the tools they need. So I guess we have a lot of boundaries.
I like that about phone checks. I mean, Dave and I, we have done that too. Our kids know, our two oldest who have phones. Our 9-year-old doesn't have a phone, but for our 15 and 13-year-olds, they know that at any time we can check their texts and check their emails and see. And we've never quote caught them end quote doing anything inappropriate, but it's been actually, I think, eye-opening for us more than anything else, especially what some of their friends are saying by texting. So that's been really helpful. And I love what you said, Lisette, about apps. I mean, I feel like my kids ask me to download apps or games, always in the middle of I'm cooking dinner and trying to help the youngest with spelling, and we've got to get out the door for soccer practice. And that's when they come to me and say, Mom, can I download blah, 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 blah? And I don't, sometimes it's just tempting to say yes to resolve it quickly. And we actually dealt with this in Right Click and gave some really practical suggestions, things that parents could ask their students to research and come back to them with answers to. So I love that you're trying to be thoughtful with apps. So again, LaRosa, your kids are a little bit younger. What kind of boundaries are you setting up with them as elementary school students?
I'm learning a lot.
Good. So am I, actually.
I think our biggest thing is TV time.
Yeah.
We do have a family computer in the house that usually they are only using it to do research projects for school, and maybe if it's some kind of enrichment that the teachers ask them to do with some games and stuff to help with math and stuff like that. My oldest one has gotten into doing YouTube videos to make things, but I feel like I have to monitor that because, like you said, one wrong click and you could, you know, come up on some really
inappropriate,
not so great things. But one of the things is we don't do TV during the week. But one of the boundaries my husband and I have been talking about a lot lately is on the weekends we don't really have a boundary. We just say no TV during the week, Monday through Thursday, Friday morning. You cannot watch any TV no matter how much time you have. Book, go play outside or something. And then on the weekends, once you've done chores, you can watch all your shows you taped on the during the week. But just recently, I was talking to a friend, and she was like, "What would it mean for you to like make them earn it for the weekend? You know, so instead of giving them like the weekend to watch as much as they want." And so we've really been talking about doing that, just because my little one is one that like she will literally, it's like the world is ending if you say TV time is over. You know? And for me, it's like, okay, that's when it's gone too far. When you feel like your life is ending. Right. You cannot watch a 30-minute show of My Little Pony.
Totally.
So those are the things that we're kind of like, okay, now maybe we need to even have boundaries on the weekend. Because you know, just during the week is not enough. And just even thinking about like, what do we do when? Because they play games, but not a lot of games on our phones and iPads and things like that, but it's the screen time of watching Hulu and Netflix and, you know, all the little cartoons that they like to watch on the weekend. So.
And Larissa, I think that's such a good point about these rules need to change and evolve, and sometimes we need to even trust our intuition. Our 13-year-old this past weekend, she went to bed at like 7:30. And she's been going to bed early. Normally her bedtime's around 8:30 or 9, but I think she's just going through a growth spurt and getting really tired these days. And there was just something about her going to bed early that I thought, we need to take her technology, because I just thought, is she going to bed and then watching devices? I said, and we do this regularly, not every night to be honest, but we ask our kids to plug their phones in and their computers in someplace else. And so I asked of that of our 13-year-old, and she was frustrated. She's like, "Mom, don't you trust me?" And I explained to her that night, and then we had a better conversation about it the next morning when things weren't so heated. That I said, you know, I'm just trying to trust my intuition as a parent, and every once in a while I'm going to do things just because I asked God to guide me, and I felt like I needed to do this extra step with you. Now, in talking with her, and I'm pretty good at reading my daughter, I can tell she wasn't doing anything inappropriate with technology, but still, I just felt like I needed to trust my gut and trust the Holy Spirit to guide me in those times where you got to check those texts. Or, you know, maybe it's time to take those devices and not let them sleep in kids' rooms with them. So, because we've certainly heard horror stories there too. So, you know, Steve, I love you talked about how in the midst of this blurring of family and friends, that technology gives us as parents and grandparents a way to stay in touch with our kids. And I would say technology can be a really positive thing. And that's so important to emphasize that, yes, we need to have boundaries, and, you know, yes, it grieves me when I drive past a family in a car and all the kids are on devices, or, you know, even worse when I see a family sitting at a restaurant and all of them are on devices, you know, parents, step-parents, kids. I mean, that just grieves me. So yes, technology can be a problem, but it can also be a blessing. You know, it can also be an asset in our family. So what are some ways that technology has helped your family grow closer, build intimacy, cohesion, and maybe even strengthened your family's faith? Can you talk about some of those ways, please?
Yeah, so a couple things that I think we've discovered is when the kids were younger, I mean, the video game thing got in vogue and the girls really loved some of that, but we just found that some of the adventure games we would play together. And I mean, these are the ones you have to sort of figure out. And so there was a lot of dialogue in between us and a shared experience. And they would even let me hold like the device sometimes and actually like do things, which is really, really rare. Because I was like, Dad, let me have it. But we still have fond memories of sort of this togetherness time, which is really great. The other thing we realized is that my wife is truly the photographer in our family. So when we would go on vacation, she would always take the picture.
Yeah.
But with everybody and their phones and cameras,
Right.
the vantage points of different pictures, as we pull those together of our trips, we tell different stories about our trips together, which has been a really, really cool thing as well. Two of my daughters are in college right now, and another thing that I've committed to do, and we've talked this through with them, is I text them every morning, and I don't expect them to text me back.
How often do they text you back?
Maybe a couple times a week,
Okay.
depending on what they need.
Sure.
But it's just this thing where I want them to know, and I told them this, I'm not expecting you to text me back, but I just want you to know that I'm praying for you, I'm cheering for you, I'm believing in you.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just hi, sometimes it's a quote, sometimes it's just a thought. But it's funny because it'll come back sometimes and they'll tell me, I'm really glad you do that.
Yeah,
So it's
nice.
just sort of a way of sort of staying in touch without expecting anything back. And they know that, which is really, really important.
Nice. You know, on that whole gaming piece, as we did interviews for our book, Right Click, with parents, we heard from multiple parents that often in gaming or technology situations in general, their kids knew more than them, and their kids loved being able to instruct the parents. You know, that just happened to me a couple nights ago, sitting on this very couch with Krista, my 13-year-old. She started showing me shortcuts in Mac. And, you know, because she had Googled it and she knew all these shortcuts, and she showed me about 8, and I told her, Krista, I can probably handle 2 at a time. So we need to accept this kind of dribs and drabs, not all at once. And so, you know, I learned how to close tabs without clicking on the mouse, etc. And I mean, she had the biggest grin on her face. Like, here I am showing mom how to do something on technology. So when kids are ahead of us, which at least in my family is most of the time in technology, I think that's a great dynamic for our kids to be the masters and for them to be teaching, coaching, mentoring us. So, and that often happens in games. Well, it always happens in games with our family. The times when I play games, we usually just laugh so hard because I get eliminated so quickly, and we all think that's hilarious how bad mom is at the games. So yeah, that's great. So that the shared experiences, memories on trips, and those encouragements that you can text your kids. Now, do you do this? You don't do this with your high school daughter, just the two who are not living with you?
I actually have started doing it with my high school daughter too, just because it just seemed like the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So so we usually every morning I'm sending those out.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
That's great. Yeah. You know, when you were talking about texting your daughter, I was thinking about one of my kids wanted to start texting me at home to ask me questions, and I'm like, no, we were both at home. I'm like, no, we are not doing that. So you can walk down the hallway and ask me a question. Okay. So texting those teenagers is great, but we're still trying to do, not when you're 20 yards away from each other. So Okay, so what are some other ways that technology has been a positive for you and your families?
Well, I would certainly say for us with grandparents, it's been wonderful.
Oh, of course.
We don't live in the same country.
Yes.
The fact that my kids can FaceTime
Yes.
as opposed to just, you know, mail. I mean, my mom talks about, we immigrated from Holland when I was little, and it was so expensive to call. Once a month, she would get to call her mom, you know? And so now, I mean, we text every day, my mom and I don't have time for a phone call every day, but we text every day, which is awesome. But the kids can FaceTime and they share photos. And then even my husband's grandma, so the kid's great grandma, bless her heart, has learned how to send a weekly email, which is awesome.
That's adorable.
She turns 90 this next month.
Wow.
But we also set her up to connect to all of our Instagram accounts. So she gets all our photos automatically. And she just always says, thanks for taking the time to send those. And I'm like, there is no time involved. She doesn't understand that, and that's okay. She just thinks it's so nice because she gets so many photos and just feels so connected to what we're up to. So I love that about technology. It just keeps us connected in a way broader way. I mean, I know so much going on with friends that I probably wouldn't have, you know, from moving this far away. You know, back in the day, that would not have been, back in the day, you know, 15 years ago, I wouldn't have known that. But now I do, and I think that's a huge blessing. But I think also I'm with you on the texting our kids, you know, and now I want to think about it more based on our earlier conversation about just not being overly present, I
Yeah.
think, during their day or feeling like I'm hovering. But
Right.
I love, I was sharing earlier before we started this that my son was just having a rough day. And I love that just before lunch, I just sent him a quick text
Absolutely.
just to say, I love you and I'm praying for you and I'm thinking about you today. And I'm sorry the day started so, rough, but I pray that the day improves. And it's changed our ability to insert some God conversation in different ways.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
great. And I find with my kids who have devices and are texting, our two oldest, that sometimes we share, we're almost sometimes more encouraging by text than we are in person. Like, I just so appreciate you, especially my kids toward me. Sometimes they're more encouraging. So that's been an extra blessing for us, that they feel a little bit more free to show their appreciation for me and for my husband via text. So, so how about you with younger kids? How is technology a blessing for you?
I agree with FaceTime. We're originally from Mississippi, so all of our family's back home. So it's been great to be able to communicate that way. I travel with my husband quite often.
Yes.
So it's always great to be able to not just hear their voices, but like see them and look in their faces and actually see how they're doing, rather than hear how they're doing.
Yeah.
I think about Facebook and how like sometimes it's so annoying, but I love that, because my family's spread out all over the place. My dad's side of the family has like a Facebook group for our family, so I get to keep up with nieces and nephews and cousins and know how to pray for people on both sides of my family, and their secret groups, and people will say, having surgery in a couple of days, pray for me, that kind of thing. So I love Facebook in that I can keep in touch with so many people at once.
Yeah.
And there are people that I wouldn't necessarily keep up with on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's been great. And with my kids, both my kids are in the Spanish immersion program. My oldest is, I would say, pretty much fluent, but neither my husband nor myself know any Spanish. So one of the things I'm really grateful for is Google Translate.
Oh yeah.
The teachers wouldn't agree. They don't necessarily like it, but it's really helped me be able to like translate homework and say things in the right way, because I have a Southern accent. So when I'm trying to like pronounce something, and my kids who say it fluently, and, they're like, that's just not the way to say it. So I'll be like listening to Google Translate to like listen to the accent to like communicate with my kids in Spanish. So it's been, technology. It's a lot of fun to be able to relate to my younger kids right now, especially since they don't actually have their own phones.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how so many of you have talked about how it helps us keep in touch with people who don't live near us. I mean, I remember being in college, like I would call home on the weekends because it was cheaper, and even like Sunday night was the cheapest time. And so, I would try to structure my weekends so I could call home on Sunday night. And now, like you said, we can do it anytime, especially using FaceTime or whatever it might be, very little or no cost. So, so that's great. One of the things that we really believe at the Full Youth Institute is that we as parents, we're on a journey, and sure, we can learn from research and be intentional and thoughtful, but we're also going to make mistakes. And that's okay. God's grace is bigger than our mistakes. Jesus is bigger than our mistakes. But let's talk for a little bit about maybe mistakes that you've made when it comes to technology that you wish you had handled differently, because I think we all can learn from that kind of processing too, not just what we do well, but ways that we've kind of blown it, especially with our kids. And I'll go ahead and start. I actually have a long list. So if y'all are silent, I can just keep going on this. Or when are we ending this webinar? I will say that with one of our kids, who's a particularly social child, this child was texting while doing homework. And using the excuse of, we're helping each other, or they're asking me questions about my assignments, or I'm asking them questions. And so I would walk past this child's room, notice I'm not using the gender of the child, and I'd hear all this beeping from the device, and I'm thinking there's just no way they're able to focus. And sure enough, grades were not what they could have been. And so Dave and I had to sit with this child 6 weeks ago and 2 nights ago and talk with them about, we really just can't text during homework. We need to turn off that device and focus on homework. So that's one thing that Dave and I, we were slow on picking up on how all those interruptions can affect their homework and their studying, and then their homework, and not only is it not as quality, but then their homework takes so much longer and drags later at night, and then it affects how they sleep and all that. So I would say that literally just 2 nights ago, we were talking with this child about that, because once again, we got too lax and grades dropped just a bit, so we're now tightening the reins on that. So we were a little low and we're a little slow, and we're probably, we every once in a while we're a little too loose on that boundary with our kids. So that's our most recent mistake. How about other mistakes that you've made that you wish you had handled differently?
I would say for us, it has more to do with Albert and myself, just being more conscious of using our phones. Because, we'll sit down and do a family movie, but there are times where I look up and we're both like, oh yeah, that's so great. And my kids, even my almost 4-year-old he'll be like, Mommy, look at me. Look at me.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
And you kind of like, gosh, I wish that hadn't happened, you know? So I think that for us right now, it's just being way more conscious of putting our phones away.
Yeah.
And I've kind of fought the put in the box, and it's like no phone zone thing, but I think that's something we're probably gonna have to implement soon, just because you just become so unaware that your phone is like attached to you so much, and your kids are so aware of it, that they start to mention it, and then you're just like, gosh, I wish that hadn't happened.
Absolutely. For us, we have no devices at dinner time, and sometimes it's harder for me than my kids, because I'll, my phone will be in my pocket, and I'll feel a text coming in, and I'm like, no, can't get it now. And so that awareness. Some of the research that we cover in this book, Right Click, it's fascinating. Like pediatricians and emergency rooms are seeing more children come in with injuries from playground accidents, and they think it's because parents are on their devices while at playgrounds and not paying attention to kids. So, which I see that. I've seen that at playgrounds, and done a little bit of that myself when my kids were little. So there's so many times that we're on our devices and not giving our kids the attention that we want to and that they deserve. So thanks for being honest about that, LaRosa. So other mistakes that you've made, Lisa or Steve?
I mean, the list is so long.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. We only have about 11 minutes left, so pick just one or two.
I think one of the ones that I worry about and have currently just been noticing is, I think as much as our children have social clout based on what they're posting, we do as well.
Totally.
And I think it affects how we feel about ourselves as much as they notice that. And so I recognize, like, I don't always love photos of myself.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, no, we need to take another selfie because this is not working, family. Because did you see my face?
Right.
Everybody
else is okay, but if we're
it did not matter. I did not look okay.
Totally.
And I just think, oh my goodness, what am I teaching my kids with that?
Yeah.
And so I worry about that, and I just worry about what that does for them and what they're seeing and thinking about themselves based on just what I think about myself and what image I'm willing to put out. And I just had a friend text me, and she's just struggling with a lot of anxiety, and just said she felt like she couldn't look at Facebook anymore because all it is people with perfect lives.
Yeah.
And I said, oh gosh, and we know that's not true.
Yeah.
But that is what we present of ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing our kids are seeing us, therefore, put on a front of what we're willing to present versus what is real.
Yeah.
And so I really worry about that and think about that, and I'm not sure I'm doing a great job with that, especially for my daughter more so than my son, I think, as far as just image and self and worth. So I don't love that when I think about it too much.
Yeah, absolutely. I can still relate to that. I mean, the fear of missing out, FOMO, it's not just for kids. As we as adults struggle with that too, as we see posts and texts of people having this kind of fun, like you said, perfect life. Our life doesn't feel like it matches it. So that's really true.
Yeah.
How about you, Steve? Mistakes that you or Jen have made?
Yeah.
Let's talk about your wife's mistakes.
Yeah. the photos thing reminds me of, I think especially as our kids got older, the photos that we would put of them on social media, if it was a family gathering or something that they did. It's kind of like maybe when we were younger and our parents would pull out the baby pictures to show like a date or a friend, it's like, you're so embarrassed. And I think the mistakes we made is we didn't really ask them for permission. Like to begin to say, is this okay? Here's why we want to put this on here. What do you think about that? And give them sort of some say in what you're posting about them, because it's their lives as well. And you know, I think we're too quick to maybe post things that they don't really want to post any more than I would want someone to post something of me necessarily. And so I think we've had to learn to sort of navigate that. Another one that's slightly different for as kids get older is we just realized for a while that we were getting this really lax in like our girls would have a friend come over, or if it was a date, they would text them from the driveway and they would say, okay, I'm coming out. And right, you know, after a while we're like, no, wait a minute. No, the guy comes to the door. I want to look him in the eye. I want to shake his hand. I want to get to know your friends. And we're not letting that exchange happen. And so, you know, I mean, and it wasn't because we're trying to be mean. I think we really want to know the friends that our kids are hanging around with. So that was really something that we kind of caught ourselves realizing, oh, wait a minute, they're just splitting. We want that interaction. And remind them of that. So things that we try to learn.
Yeah, I'll tell you, my son's just started high school as a 9th grader 2 months ago, and it has been a challenge for me and Dave that, like, he makes all these social plans via text with kids that we've never met sometimes. And, you know, so I love the independence that gives kids, but then also, you know, we as parents, I want to stay in the loop. For so many reasons, I want to get to know my kids' friends. I mean, I love teenagers, and I want our home to be a safe place and a welcoming place, and I want to know who's influencing my kids and shaping my kids. And so technology gives our kids a lot of independence, which is fantastic. But, you know, I think we as parents, we need to be diligent and continue to stay in the loop and continue to be on top of that. So, yeah, and again, this is totally anecdotal, but I'll tell you, girls, well, actually, no, this isn't anecdotal. There's research behind this. Girls do way more texting than boys. And you know, Nathan and I will laugh, like the texts he gets back from boys are like, you know, K, like just the letter K, or 1 or 2 syllables. And girls, and my daughter actually, she expresses frustration that, like, she puts thought into 1 or 2 sentences to send to a boy, and he texts back yes or yeah, or, you know, something like that. So actually there is data to support that girls text more frequently and have way longer texts and more complicated texts, and are trying to keep that social ball going a lot more than the typical teenage boy.
I feel that way even texting my kids. My daughter will send back a lot more information than my son and his
Totally.
I get that one all the time. Yup.
Totally.
Yep means what? Son, tell me more.
Yeah. And I'm married to an engineer, so he's all about concise answers. Even in our email, I kid him all the time, like, the email disclaimer he puts at the bottom about, you know, not forwarding this that his company hasn't put, that's always longer than his actual email. Like, it's 20 times. So he's a man of very few words. So when it comes to texting and emailing, wonderful, wonderful husband, who I love so much. You know, we have just a few minutes, so, you know, we've covered so many topics related to technology, but I'm just wondering, is there any last piece of advice or perspective that you would offer to parents or grandparents or to youth leaders who are navigating this world of technology themselves and trying to help families do so? Is there any piece of advice or maybe any ongoing question that you're kind of wrestling with that you want us to chew on or have folks continue to chew on in conversations that last even beyond this webinar? So, Steve, I'm going to ask you to go first. So,
yeah, you know, I think it's not just with technology, but I think with our daughters in general, I think to constantly remind them, hey, we're trying to figure this out too.
Yeah.
You know, I think what it does is that we're all in this sort of together, trying to navigate that. We're going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. That's okay, but let's try to figure this out in a healthy sort of way together. So I think that's really been huge for us. And then I think the other thing that we've just learned is that technology means something different to younger people compared to older people. And I don't want to assume my meaning of the way they're using technology is the way that they mean that. So in many ways, it's this constant learning that's happening that I'm doing with my kids.
Yeah.
So why is this so important to you? What, why are you using that form of technology? Why do you need this? Help me understand, not in a condemning way, but in a really an understanding way. And I think that just promotes good understanding and gives, I think, our kids a chance to articulate why and what they're doing rather than just assuming that they're doing something wrong. Because as we've talked about, there's some great things with technology as well. So I think we can learn something from that in that process as well.
Great, great. So talking about journeying together and then learning with our kids. So really, really helpful. How about you, LaRosa or Lisette? Any last bits of advice or perspective or something you're kind of wrestling with?
I guess wrestling and perspective at the same time. I love what you said, because my kids aren't at an age yet when we've gotten into the phones. But for me, just being very prayerful and asking the Holy Spirit to guide me in how I use technology, so that when it is time for my kids to get phones, I'm navigating it out of a perspective of what my kids need and how I can guide them, and not necessarily from what my experience has been, because I'm older and like you said, we're immigrants, so I'm still learning and I'm still getting it, slowly getting it myself. And when my kids get phones in 2 or 3 years, it's gonna be so different.
Yep.
And just
should be like holograms and all that sort of stuff.
So trying to be open and not be closed-minded when it is time for me to get them phones, and and navigate it in the right way. So just being very prayerful about when that happens, how I allow the Holy Spirit to just allow me to keep an open relationship with my kids, so that this won't become tension.
Well, thanks for talking about the importance of prayer, LaRosa, because ultimately, I mean, I love research, but more than that, I love it when the Holy Spirit is guiding how Dave and I parent. So how about you, Lisette?
Yeah, I think I appreciated very early on in the conversation, you just talked about how every kid is so different and their responsibility and all those things. And I think, as I've watched parents or even my own feelings on technology, sometimes it often is this all or nothing type of thing. And yet, I don't let my kids just walk to wherever at whatever age as far as they want. The first time they get to walk alone somewhere, I can watch them walk to the neighbor's house the whole way. And they feel so big, that they made that walk. And then the next time it's around the corner. And as the stages go. And so I think just to approach technology, not with this all or nothing feeling, but having some perspective. But the other thing, and I hope it's okay to say this, I had the luxury of reading that fine book. And the one thing that really clicked for me that I hadn't thought about the same way, and what I appreciated was, I think when we see technology often for kids, our assumption is they're disconnecting. And it feels like because they're disconnecting from us or the situation, their presence changes sometimes, that our assumption is that they're just kind of lost to something. Whereas they use it very much as to connect. And so I think, like you said, like their use of technology versus our assumption of, or even how we use it, is so different. And so I think it's so good for us to just ask them more. I love that you said that. I think that's so good. And just to think about what it is that they're using it for and what it means to them. And
I mean, I would just add to wrap up, you touched on this a little bit, but I've told my kids that I want to use technology, especially my laptop. That's more an issue for me than my phone. Less when they're around, and they've heard me say that in talks to youth leaders and parents, and so they'll sometimes say, Mommy, you said you were going to shut your laptop when I walked in the room, and I just walked in the room and you didn't shut your laptop. And I'm glad that they know those goals that I have, but then I'm also glad that I can tell them, you're right, and I totally blew it. I'm so sorry. Will you forgive me? And so, so my kids know the kind of process that I'm trying to make and the goals that I have for technology myself, but then also they know that I'm a sinner and I struggle and my life is often 3 steps forward and 2 steps backward, and that we can be honest about that. And so, so I find that, as with many things, I'm often apologizing to my kids. So anyway, well, I am so glad that we've had this conversation, and friends who are watching this webinar, We have this new book, Right Click, that came out just today. And if you go to rightclickbook.com, that's all one word, rightclickbook.com, you can download a free chapter. And I'll tell you, during the process of researching and writing this book, I learned so much about technology. Dave and I had so many conversations based on what I and the FY team were learning by talking to parents, as well as studying amazing research done on technology. So we've really written this to be a helpful guide for your family and your ministry, especially as we move into the holiday month. So, so we hope it's helpful, and please visit our website where we have this and so many other free resources available to you. So thank you all, my friends, for this fireside chat here, and we wish you all the best. We hope you have an amazingly special and Jesus-centered Christmas.